All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Game and Compute. Here on this podcast, we talk about your finances, money, side hustles, career, job, just experiences with your life goals, lifestyle. Today I wanted to talk about a topic that's been coming up a lot in Ken Coleman's material and his content. So he's been talking about this topic where they call it quiet quitting. So basically what quiet quitting is when you have a job, you're employed at a site, you're kind of doing the minimal amount so that you stay under the radar, so that you're not necessarily breaking the rules, so that you're not necessarily doing anything like not reaching productivity or not doing the work that you need to do for the day, but you're also not like doing more, right? So the way Ken Coleman describes it is, you're basically getting a C at work. You're not working above average, you're working to what's the average demands, not doing more, not doing less, but not doing more. So what that does, it keeps you basically, off the radar of like management or people who are like reviewing your work, your work quality. Like, they're not usually going to be complaining at you, right? Because you're reaching the goals. If the company says, you need to make this many calls per hour or whatever, you're doing that. Or if it says you need to have this many logged minutes of this type of task, you're doing that. You're showing up to meetings. You're on time for things. You're logging in, logging off on time, starting work on time, ending work on time, submitting things on time, reviewing things on time. Whatever your tasks are, you're doing them in a timely fashion and you're doing them accurately, but you're doing it at a C grade level, meaning that you're doing the average, which is the bare minimum of what's asked. Now, I'm not here to criticize that method or criticize what Ken Coleman said, but I kind of thought about it some. I mean, he does mention that this is something that stems from burnout and or being at a work site where you just don't value it. It doesn't really connect with your kind of like your happiness. You don't really feel, like doing the work every day. And that can stem from so many different places. But basically, there's not a lot of passion there. You're kind of just going through the motions, kind of just doing it, doing what you're doing, and, you're not trying super hard. Usually because you don't have the energy to do so. That's usually where that stems from. It's like, well, I don't even have the energy to really do this job. The emotional energy to really, care to do this job. Put in more strength, more power, more energy into this job. You value more so your mindset, your energy just not going to that place, even if it's not really going to anywhere else. Like, maybe it's like, okay, like, I'm not saying I do this, but say, like, if you have a hybrid type job and you have some parts of your day where you're going out in the field, and then maybe you're, like, driving Uber Eats in the middle of your day for, like, between noon and, like, 2, just to make extra money, but you're still technically logged into your 9 to 5, and, you know, you're kind of making extra money there. Or maybe you're doing something, you know, like passion project related, or maybe you're just vegging out, watching TV, or just spacing out, going online, on your phone, texting other people, checking Instagram, whatever. You're doing any other thing that's just not extra parts of that job. You're kind of cutting it a couple hours short. And I would say that's usually a sign that you need some time off, usually a sign that, you know, you need some distance, because you're just not feeling it. And, you know, it's kind of one of those, you know, I think it's in the Bible where they talk about, you know, return to your first love kind of thing. Like, it's like, you know, kind of like, almost like, you know, when you have like a spiritual or religious path and you're kind of like going along and you're like motivated towards it, and then you kind of like fall off the path, and then they have this concept of like, you know, returning to your first love, you know, even if that's service to the church or temple or whatever it may be, you know. But, you know, if you take that concept towards like work, like a lot of times, not all of us, but a lot of times, some of us have started the job that we're in, feeling like, oh yeah, like this is the job I want to be in. You're starting the job that you're in, and, you know, you liked it at first. But passions change, you know, things change. One thing that I've noticed in my job is that, you know, as the Rona and as, you know, the economy and as inflation has kind of changed everything, the job that I do is also changing. So we've gone from, you know, helping people with mostly physical and mental health support, but then we've gone to, you know, with the trends now of people being laid off or not being paid enough, all these companies kind of going kind of under, you know, we have people working for different types of mainstream companies like Amazon or Starbucks or Little Caesars or Jamba Juice or Taco Bell or, you know, whatever, all these companies that seem to be cutting hours. It's like, okay, you might be an employee, but you're only on, you know, 1 day's worth of a shift. I mean, you can't really make, you know, a living off of that, not in San Diego. Most jobs you're going to be needing to work more than once a day, but it's really hard to come by jobs that are really going to pay you, and that the environment is still going to be stable, right? Because if you think about all the people who are bosses that haven't been having their mental health needs met, all that trickles down to the employee, to the server, to the whatever your role is, you know, those of us who get, you know, paid by somebody else. We're kind of at the mercy of the other people in charge of the company, in charge of us. And if they're not managing it well, if you have a manager that's never on site, you know, our job has turned into trying to find homelessness support and support for people not losing their housing because they can't pay their rent, because the rent went up and their job income didn't go up enough, or people getting laid off or not getting their paychecks on time. I mean, you know, the safe parking lots are pretty full, so, you know, people who are even like homeless but living in their cars can't really even do that easily anymore. The shelter systems are sucking more than they did before. The transitional places are sucking more than they did before. So we're kind of like in this place where it's like, okay, how do I do this job to try to help people when there's nothing to do, to help them? In San Diego, you can't sleep in your car on the sidewalk. You can sleep outside of your car on the physical sidewalk, but you can't sleep in your car. You'll get a citation for sleeping inside your car unless you're at one of these, unless you just don't get caught, or unless you're in one of these safe lot places where it's like, you're allowed to park. And never before in my life have I ever heard of those places being filled. They're opening another one, but it already says a lot when the safe parking is now full. Now, I don't know if authorities are cracking down on, maybe they're cracking down on people sleeping in their cars, because that is a solution for a lot of people. I mean, it's a beach city. You can wash up at the beach. It's not, it's not ideal, but it's like, there are food banks and places like that where you can get food, clubhouses where you can get services, if it's too hot or too cold. They have like places where you can kind of go to, public libraries and whatnot, that you can stay at during the daytime in the hot parts of the day that are air conditioned. But yeah, how do you really have like a business, or have a work-life balance when, you don't really like your job, and it's reflecting in, you having to feel like you have to do the bare minimum just to be able to like do any part of your job. That's not really a good sign if there's like a term for it, meaning that so many people are doing it. And I'm not judging those people. I'm just saying, like, the solution doesn't really seem to stay in the quiet quitting role. That doesn't really seem like a solution. I know it seems like a better solution than not, but it doesn't, to me, it doesn't really seem like an actual solution that you'd want to implement. Because it is risky and it doesn't feel good either. I was talking with a friend recently who was saying, the same thing, that kind of like how we grew up seeing our parents who were not millennials. I don't know what their generation is, if they were the boomers or what the generation was that was like right before us. They were basically, the generation that was just like, zip it, keep your mouth shut, just get your job, go to work, power through. Don't think about your quality of life at the job. Don't think about, if you're doing something you're passionate about, if that comes, true, that you are doing, passionate work, more power to you, that's better. But just because it's not work that you're passionate about doesn't mean that it's not valuable. And I feel like, talking to most of the friends that I have in my own generation and just myself, I find it hard to care about the money. For me, it's not about the money. It is about the money because I need a certain amount of money for certain goals that I have. So yes, it is about the money. I'm not going to lie and say that I don't need the money, that the money isn't important. But, I'd rather be very passionate about something. I'd rather wake up in the morning and feel passionate about something, versus, not feeling passionate and not feeling happy. And I do understand, that mindset of, just get a job and power through. You can find a way to work it. It's a way to like it. But there's also this, I don't really think I want that for myself, to just find something to do, 40 hours a week. I mean, it's like my whole day, you know what I mean? Like, it's like your whole day you can spend doing things that spend your energy, and it feels like it's sucking out your soul and taking away from you, from the quality of your life. And I don't know how mindsets change from, hey, just make your money, to now, it's just like, make, you know, have a day of passionate work that you care about. But also, millennials, we kind of have this, I guess, legacy of, create the work that you like. Even not everybody's like a creative person maybe, but we do tend to create the work that we like. We're good at that. Even if it's not really making a paycheck, a lot of us know, what we're passionate about. And it's kind of hard too, because a lot of us, went the route that we saw maybe parents or aunts and uncles and people like that going through, like, that were older than us. We saw them, get their jobs, and, they seemed maybe grumpy or not too happy or passionate about their work, but also they never were really complaining about it, and they were able to kind of like make ends meet. They did the whole, hey, get educated and then you can live the life that you want. I think for us, now going through a second recession for the millennial crowd, the first recession for the Gen Zers, it's like the American dream doesn't look like it did before. We can't just get out of college or high school after studying hard and get whatever job we want to actually pay the bills. Like, is this a temporary thing? We don't really know. Usually it's a temporary thing, but like we notice, once prices with housing and different stuff go up, they rarely go down lower than they were before they started rising. Like, I remember when I went, I think I was in 8th grade, the first time I went on a missions trip, and I talk about this a lot. I left the town, where the area where I was in LA. We went to Texas and Mexico for like a total of like 10 days or so. And gas was always like 98 cents, 99 cents. We come back, and the first thing I noticed, gas broke $1 in LA. We weren't living far from LAX area, and gas broke $1. And, before that, I never remembered it being over $1. But that's the first time I noticed in my life that it went over $1. And ever since then, I would always pass the gas stations thinking, okay, it's going to go down. Okay, it's going to go down. I remember when it went up to like 119. By the time I was driving, gas, I don't know how much it cost, but, $20. I have a 14-gallon tank. $20 would usually, I don't know if it was a complete full tank. It probably wasn't, but it was like close enough. I would usually just put $20 when I was on empty, and that usually got me close enough, like, to a fuller tank. And I don't remember if back then you could really just pay with like a debit card or whatever, because I remember when I first got my first debit card, there weren't necessarily ATMs everywhere, and so yeah, it was kind of like a different time. I feel like I'm like really dating myself. I'm not that old. I'm not even 40. And so yeah, but yeah, it was a different time, it was a different experience. But yeah, I don't remember when gas went over $2. I don't recall when that was, but during the Rona, that's the first time I remember it going to like 2 something in LA, in Southern California, in San Diego. I remember there was one time Ooh, I don't remember when this was, what years, but I remember in LA gas was like high $4, had just broke like $5 in some areas, like the Beverly Hills areas or areas right off the freeway or whatever. It was like over $5. Then it went down. So for the longest time, it was like 4 something, maybe 3 something, but usually like 4 something, closer to 5. And then it went up to a point within the last year where it was over $7. Like you would see if you looked on a map at gas stations, it would be like $7.11, $7.08, around there for some places. And then the majority of them were like $6.99, $6.95. And right now it's like somewhere between like maybe $6.10. You can find gas as low as like $5 and maybe 19 cents or so. It's kind of like a dollar range. You'll still see the 6 highs and like the 5 lows, but other than that time during the Rona when it dipped down to 2 something, you don't really have that much. And that was a very short period of time, and it was only like a demand related issue. So that's kind of how I'm seeing things, is like, okay, if that's how it looks with gas, think of how it looks with more than just the gas. How does it look with yeah, that's how it looks with the gas. Think of how it looks with like housing. Housing is ridiculous. I mentioned this time and time again. If you want a $1,500 apartment, you need to be bringing home $4,500, and you need a credit score of 650. Most people I talk to in San Diego don't make that much money, and that's just for a studio, just so you can live by yourself, so you don't have to deal with like nutcase kind of roommates. I mean, I hate saying things like nutcase, crazy, all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't, it just, for me, it comes more out of a frustration of just like, I would never call somebody that necessarily, but it's like, it's different for me when it's like somebody who I've tried to set boundaries with, who was like encroaching on my own boundaries. At that point, I'm like, dude, like, I'm not really so kind and nice. Maybe after that point, I'm just like, yo, like, I don't know how much, I really would have to put up with. Like, I try to be respectful, but at the same time, it's like, if someone else is kind of doing a number on me, it's kind of hard for me to just be like, okay, like, like, I never say that to somebody's face, but that's kind of what it feels like. If you feel like you're in a household with people that you would label them like a nutcase when you're talking about your house environment to other people, it's like, that's not a situation you want to deal with. And I've dealt with that. I've got friends who are currently dealing with that. It's just not maybe the absolute most ideal, but yeah, I don't really know what to say about it though. It's like really a challenge. It's really it's not really a fun thing to have to deal with, but yeah, all of those types of things are results of what's going on with the pandemic, with an economic crisis, with all kinds of crises going on. Quiet quitting is one of those things that is just a product of the environment, almost. Like, the environment that we're in, with the generation that we're kind of feeling stuck pretty much. Not that there are no options, but we have to be a little creative and make more options for ourselves, find more options, more opportunities. And a lot of times now, too, a lot of us are thinking, I can't just get any job. I have to have a job that's recession-proof. I have to have a job that's pandemic-proof. I feel like, the generations before us, they had their own sets of issues to have to deal with. Like, we're not getting drafted to wars and stuff like that. And, having all kinds of weird, like, spy threats, or, we're not having, World War II on our doorsteps, or World War III at our doorsteps, we're not taking on, like, military-related, government-related jobs because of a war. Like, the economy looks different. Everything looks kind of different. We're not in the middle of, like, the Great Depression and standing in bread lines and living in shanty towns. Not all of us, but it's looking like that. A lot of people are. But there are also a lot of policies in place that are kind of keeping it so that, it looks a little more stable than maybe it really actually is, just because, maybe if people are able to get unemployment and able to get more, or if people are able to get something more, then they can kind of figure out, how things are kind of gonna look for them. So yeah, it's not easy, but it's not impossible. But quiet quitting isn't really a long-term solution. Like, I get it. It's gonna, it might be just what gets you through to kind of, get to another level. I would mostly recommend, if you have EAP through your work, or if you have other types of options of taking days off work and all kinds of stuff like that, you might want to try to utilize, at the max, what's at your disposal. So you can help yourself to get your life back onto track without having to be at risk of losing, a job, or losing a good standing. Or, one thing about having a job for a while, you don't really want to get fired from it. You want to stay in good standing at those long-term jobs. It's kind of like all the crappy stuff you have to deal with and how you feel about working that day and stuff. I mean, all that's not going to feel worth it if you get fired and you can't even get a recommendation from them. It's like, at the very least, you want to use the crappy time that you spent to be able to get a recommendation letter, or for someone to help you to get a new job. You don't want somebody who's maybe not doing that. You don't want to stay in a job that's not helping you do that, and you don't want to try to apply for a job after just getting fired, after you've been at a company for a really long time. It's like, you might as well quit. See what it looks like for unemployment, if you can get unemployment in some way. How much would you be making every week? How much do you have in your savings? Plan it. If you have to just quit, see what it looks like. Do you have a car that's in good enough condition that you can maybe drive a couple hours Uber Eats or something and make some extra money, and then work towards what you're trying to actually do? For some people, that might be more worth it than working your current job. I mean, there are options. But a 40-hour work week, doing something you don't like, that's a lot of time and energy out of your day. So it makes more sense to try to get out of it than it makes to try to stay in it. So yeah, that's kind of mostly what I had to say about quiet quitting. I do understand it. It makes sense. But it seems like it comes from somewhere else. I feel like most people do want to work. I mean, there is that kind of idea that people say that's kind of weird, where it's kind of like, oh yeah, I want to sleep forever, and like, never get up and just lay in bed all. I want to have time off work and never go back to work so I can just like lay in bed and sleep all day. Like, I feel like after a while people want to be just having a passionate life. You want to wake up, feel motivated, go and do things that you're passionate about. If you're going to be spending your time and energy doing it anyways, you want to feel passionate. You don't want to feel like there's people here I don't want to deal with. There's situations here that I think suck. This is, what usually gets to me is, with the clinical work, it's like, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of full of negativity for me. It's like, it's hard. I don't know. It wasn't hard before, but it has become hard for me lately to be in a field where it's like, I'm trying most of my day not to like, be like invalidating towards myself or like delusion based, like everything's fine, everything's positive, because it's not. But it's also kind of hard to spend 8 hours a day interacting with people who are suffering and crying and lost and don't have anything, and the pressure's on, and their health isn't getting any better, and they're like physically or mentally, because of all the things going on, and people are more at risk, like having concerns with their housing and can't get to and from appointments, and can't navigate the system because the system's kind of sucking. Transportation doesn't have any real free options. Jobs don't pay enough for a lot of people, unless you're getting training, certification, schooling, or already have like a degree. It's not likely that you're gonna have a lot of money coming your way. Like, even if it is a lot of money, like I said, like taking home $4,500 is like minimum in San Diego right now, and that's not just a little bit of money. Like, you'd have to make probably about 38 or so, about 38-ish dollars an hour to be able to afford a studio, and your credit has to be at 650 and above. So that's not what everybody's life looks like. And I'm saying like studio apartment, that's like, and that's before utilities, internet, parking, trash, before you pay all those fees. So it's at least going to be $100 more, if not a couple $100 more every month. You're actually looking at closer to $1,700 a month. That's not good. That's not good. If you think about it, if you get out of college, a lot of people aren't even making that much money. If you get out of grad school, people might not even be making that much money. Like almost $40 an hour. That's a lot of money. So that's kind of how I see it, and in California, the taxes are extreme. If you're trying to contribute to your retirement, that's, more money taken out. You get healthcare insurance, that's more money taken out. I think I have about $1,000 that I get deducted per month. And that's not even a lot compared to some people, but I have $1,000 deducted per month. And when tax season comes around, I'm still owing, but that's not for taxes that's deducted. That's considering taxes. That's if I'm contributing the minimal for retirement and other things. But I found other ways to contribute to my retirement that's not just through, the deduction out of my paycheck. So that's kind of bought me more investment money. But I mean, I know it's hard out there. Like, I'm feeling it too. So all I can really say is, slowly create a plan and, work with the plan that you have. Make sure it's a solid plan. Do what you got to do to get the plan rolling. It's a step-by-step process. If you can't wait for a step-to-step process, definitely consider like those food delivery type options. That's kind of the most immediate work that you can kind of just start. If you have a car, that is. And if you don't, I mean, Amazon, I can't really vouch for them, but it seems like they hire. I mean, everyone I know who needed a job right away, if they didn't have like maybe a car necessarily, but they needed to like get to their work they needed work right away, I feel like they got hired by Amazon pretty quickly. There are a lot of sites that hire you pretty quickly, but Amazon doesn't have the best reviews right now. You can read some of what Jeff Bezos is saying, and about basically burning out the workers and working them to the nubs. Basically, that's my explanation. That's not in his words, but if you have a company that's kind of not really caring for the employees, and they're just more like, well, we're gonna go through all these employees and just burn them out because we can get ours that way. Like that's kind of the sentiment. So I don't really think it's the best idea to quiet quit. I understand it. It might get you by for the moment. But, if you think about it, it is C-level work. If you count just that one job that you're doing C-level work at, and then see what you're doing with the rest of your time and energy. Is it that you're just vegging out because you need more work, more relaxation time? Is it that you're doing something else that you're more passionate about? Are you doing something, for yourself? Like usually for me, because I work remotely, if there are days when I'm, not really in it, it's not uncommon for me to do things like cleaning or exercising or, passion projects, like during lunch breaks or whatever. Like, it's kind of good to know where you're naturally gravitating your energy towards. And then also, not letting other people get in your way. That's something I want to talk about because I'm getting a little bit of pushback that I've noticed, and I don't really know if it's because I'm, being more open to letting other people, learn about my experiences. I'm not talking about on here on podcasting. I'm just saying in general. When I talk to certain people that I know, I do get a little bit of pushback, people kind of questioning, if I get excited about some type of field that I've come across, because like I'm searching about it, and sometimes I'll tell people and they seem, they're kind of like, oh, that's probably not going to pan out, or that's, you're not going to be happy doing that, or do you really think that's what you want to do instead of what you're doing now? Do you think you have the skills to do that, right now? Like, like you should, you should do, people asking about like the companies, like, is that really going to be like a good company? And like, like, and I'm wondering where that kind of pushback kind of comes from, because I'm like, the people that I'm talking to aren't necessarily going through, like, if I send a link about something that I think is like a cool idea, they're not necessarily going through and researching all that stuff out, and then coming back and like, oh, this company has like, a mission statement that you might not agree with, or this company has like like a reputation or rating or whatever. Like, they're not researching out based on what I send them. They're just kind of questioning it a lot, and it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe I'm just reading into things, maybe I'm just but I'm not saying everybody I know is doing that, but that's when I've recently mention to people kind of what I'm trying to do, they, the few people I've mentioned it to have kind of pushed back and been kind of not so much like, oh, like, yeah, that's a good idea, get out of the job you don't like, try something different. They're kind of more like questioning it, and it's kind of like, I don't know where that's coming from. But also, these aren't the people that I talk to or see on a very regular basis, so they might have a perspective of me that's based on something that they know about me from either the past or how they kind of perceive things through their own lens right now. Because none of them, I'm not like telling them, oh, there's this type of job site that seems like it would be an interesting role to get into and take a year or two to kind of get into that role. It's not like stuff that they're already doing currently. It's more like other types of work. And, I just wonder where that's coming from. Like, I try to take people's, I don't know if I would call it advice, but I try to take people's, comments and opinions, listen to them and see and hear kind of what they're saying to me, and not just like write it off, but also it's kind of like, it's not supportive, to be like implanting doubt in other people's minds if there's not really a doubt there, like a specific reason to doubt it. So I kind of wonder, because I'm like, well, the people that I've talked to don't really seem to know that field that much, and so why are they saying what they're saying? That part to me is a little bit confusing. Like, why are they responding in that way? I don't know what it is. It's just kind of unexpected and weird. I am kind of under the viewpoint that nobody should really get in anyone's way or try to like discourage people from trying to do something different. If it's not like an outrageous idea, like I'm not like, okay, I'm quitting my job today and like going into this thing, like all of a sudden, like that's not the conversation that I've been having with people. It's been people that I know who are kind of trying to shift their work and their income situation and get into different jobs. But I don't know if they're really making moves on it either. So it might be coming from that, that I'm kind of like at a different stage. Because I've really been working on it and I'm kind of at a different stage. It's not like a very like in-depth stage that I'm at. It's still like early stage. But I feel like maybe I'm just talking about it too soon. So I might just stop mentioning it to people because I think I'm not really liking what I hear people say. Like, I think it kind of gets in my head too much, and I'm like, I don't really want these negative ideas from other people kind of getting in my mind and swaying my decisions or taking me away from the process of trying to like do something new. I'm not saying that it's even going to work fully, but if people are implanting doubt that it's not going to work fully, they're implanting doubt without actual reasoning why, like kind of like questioning me about stuff, and it's kind of like weird. I don't know, like maybe I just took it weird, I don't know, but to me it's kind of weird because it's not one person, it's like multiple people. And what I'm like, the fields I'm talking about aren't like these lofty ideas. I'm not being like, oh yeah, I want to be like a firefighter all of a sudden, or not that people can't do it, but it's like I don't work out to the level where I can be doing that all of a sudden. That would take like ages for me to get into that kind of shape, and I don't really exhibit any real desire to be doing that kind of thing. So I don't really think it's Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to look at it, at what people say. There might be something valid to what they say, but I don't know because I don't think they really know what they're saying. Like, I don't think they're saying what they say based on firsthand knowledge or based on something that they came across. It just seems like they're just kind of like saying stuff. Maybe they don't really understand, what's going on here. It's like, dude, I am trying to drastically change my situation. I'm not trying to, I mean, I don't really need other people's approval, but it is kind of interesting because, I mean, if people are going to say like negative things, I do want to know where it's coming from. Like, because if somebody knows something I don't know about some kind of field, and I'm like, yeah, I want to go into this, and people are like, wait, don't do that. That sounds like it's a terrible field to go into because of this, and that reason. I mean, I'd like to know if I'm going into something that sounds like completely terrible because somebody else knows something that I don't know about it. But I don't know. Like, it's kind of a complex thing that's been coming up, and yeah, I'm still plugging away trying to get myself into a different setting. So I'm not the only one, but I try to be grateful and practice gratitude and understand that there are some positive aspects to being able to have ability and options to be able to take my time into transitioning out of this job. So with that's pretty much what I have to say about quiet quitting. And thanks for listening.